Hi, I'm James Houston, Director of Maintenance. Today we're going to go through a pre-trip inspection. There are 4 things you should have for your pre-trip inspection. One is a flashlight. You'll need either a rag or paper towel or something to wipe the dipstick with. It helps to have a good pair of gloves and some kind of a tire billy. A big hammer works just fine, or you can just use anything that is very heavy to hit the tires with. First off, we're going to start out with checking the driver's side engine compartment. I'm going to come over here. First thing I'm going to do, especially because the truck has been setting for a while, I'm going to go ahead and check my oil. I'm going to wipe the dipstick off, make sure it's completely clean. Put it back in. Give it about 2 seconds. Pull it back out, and then I'm going to check the oil. From the bottom of the dipstick to the full mark up here is 2 gallons. If it's in the middle, that's 1 gallon. This truck is fine. It does not need any additional oil. You can run them from the full mark down to halfway. That's fine. But anytime it's at the bottom of the stick, you want to add oil. Now I'm going to move on. I'm going to look at my power steering fluid. It's at the full mark. I'm going to look at my fuel water separator. I want to make sure that the fuel's below this red line somewhere in this area. Anything above that, then the filter in here needs changed immediately. You should call the shop, and we'll either get you back to the shop or we'll have it done on the road. You may see a little fuel in here. It just shouldn't be up that high. Then I'm going to move up here into the reservoir for the radiator, and I'm going to look at my cold mark and my high mark. This is right in the middle. It should never be below the cold minimum mark, otherwise you risk the truck shutting down on you. Then you want to move on, and I want to look for fuel leaks. This is where the flashlight comes in handy. I'm going to look up here. I'm going to look at the fuel rail, all the injectors. I'm going to look along the rocker cover gaskets, make sure there's no oil dripping there. I'm going to look at the back of the motor, the sides of the motor, underneath, just any possible place that there could be any type of a leak. I'm going to check. I don't see any leaks on this one, so we're going to move on. I'm going to look at my steering box. Below the yoke here, sometimes this seal can leak. There's also a seal behind the steering arm. I'm going to look down here for oil leaks. Again, I don't see any leaks, so we're good there. Then I want to look at my pitman arm. Just shake that. That should never be loose. It should always be tight. That's good. And then I'm going to look at my spring. I'm going to make sure that everything is in line. There's not one half that's skewed over for the other. I'm going to look for cracks. I don't see any cracks, so everything there looks good. I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to check my slack adjuster pins, make sure the pins are in place, as well as the cotter pins. I'm going to look for anything that may look bent or loose or out of place, no loose bolts. And then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to look down into the brake area. I'm going to check this part right here of my brake lining. That needs to be at a minimum 1/4 of an inch. Anything above that is good. This is almost an inch, so it's almost a new lining. Everything's good there. I'm going to check for any kind of leaks or air. Listen for air leaks. I don't hear any air leaks coming from anywhere. I'm going to check my clamps, and then I'm just going to give it one more look over to make sure I didn't miss anything. And everything there looks to be okay. While I'm here now, I'm going to check my steer tire. I'm going to look for any cuts in the sidewall. I don't see any cuts. I'm going to look for uneven wear across the top of the tire, any dips or cuts, any foreign objects that are in the tread, such as a nail, a screw, anything like that. If you find something in the tread, call the shop right away. Do not pull it out. If you pull it out, you could risk losing the air out of the tire. That screw or nail could be what's holding the air in. And we want to be able to get you to a repair shop if we possibly can. So never pull anything out of a tire unless you are at the shop or at a tire repair shop. I'm going to come down here now. I'm going to look at all my lug nuts, and the only way to really do this is put your fingers on each one. You should not be able to move them. Those are all tight. I'm going to look for any oil leaks around the hubcap. Everything there is clean. I'm now going to take the plug out of the hubcap. I'm going to stick my finger in there. And look, I've got oil on my finger, so everything there is okay. Generally, the rule I go by is the first knuckle. Sometimes you can see the level on the cap, and other times you can't. I prefer to just stick my finger in it and check it. Then I know for sure that there's oil in it. That's pretty much everything in this area of the truck. Now we're going to go around to the other side. And once again, I'm going to start looking for loose clamps. Anything that could possibly be loose on the engine. I'm going to check my AC compressor. I'm going to check my alternator, make sure nothing's loose. I'm going to grab a hold of the belt, and there should be quite a bit of tension on that belt. It should never be loose. If it's real floppy, there's something wrong. I'm going to check my front belt here. Same with that belt. There should be plenty of tension on the belt. And if you can reach the fan belts, do the same with that. I'm also going to look at my fan, make sure that there are no broken blades, cracks in the fan of any kind. If there's a crack, then the blade could potentially break and go into the radiator and create a leak. Then I'm going to just, again, visually look for any fuel leaks. I'm going to look for oil leaks down the side of the motor. I'm going to look back underneath as far as I can see. Look for anything that may look out of place. I don't see any oil leaks. I don't see any fuel of any kind. Don't see any antifreeze leaking. Everything here looks good. Then I'm going to repeat the procedure for the steer tire. I'm going to check it for any foreign objects in the tire. Once again, I'm going to check my lug nuts. I'm going to check my hubcap. And again, I can touch the oil in it with my first knuckle, so I'm good. Give it one last good look over here. Also, I'm going to check my spring down here, and I'm going to look at the airbags, make sure the airbags are inflated. Also going to check the suspension rod. Again, I'm going to check the cotter pins and the slack adjuster pins, same as on the other side. And I'm going to look at my brake shoes. I've got plenty of lining. I don't see any cracks in the drum. I'm going to check my hose here to make sure that the brake hose isn't rubbing. And that is pretty much it for this area. Now I'm going to close the hood. You want to make sure and latch both sides of the hood. Sometimes these hoods can be a little tricky. You got to make sure you get both sides. There you go. Okay, now I'm going to check our side box. I'm going to pull the handle here, and the side box pops open. And inside the side box, I'm going to check and make sure that I have 3 triangles. 1, 2, 3. They're not damaged, they're not broken. I'm going to look at my fire extinguisher, making sure that the yellow needle is in the green area. That's good. And I've got a gallon of antifreeze, I've got a gallon of oil, and I've got a gallon of windshield washer solvent. So everything in this area is good. I'm going to now move to the rear of the truck. And as I go, I'm going to look up around the fuel tank. I'm going to look up underneath, make sure there aren't any leaks. I'm also going to look up underneath the truck, just again looking for anything that's out of place, doesn't look right to you. Any hoses that may be rubbing, any fluids of any kind. There shouldn't be any fluids up underneath the truck. Anything that may be loose, bolts loose, any cracks. It all looks good. There's no fuel underneath the truck. I don't believe we have any leaks. Quarter fender is secure. We're going to check our lug nuts again on our wheels. Lug nuts are tight. There's no oil dripping from the axle. Sometimes these axle gaskets will leak. Everything looks good there. I'm going to check all my fifth wheel bolts, making sure that these are all secure. Everything's good there. I have no cracks in my fifth wheel cradle. Everything else looks good. All the bolts are tight. I'm going to check my springs like we did on the front. Everything is in line. I don't see any cracks. U-bolts are all tight. And once again, I'm going to look at the brake lining. It may be a little hard to see here, but I'm going to make sure I don't have any cracks in the drums and that the brake lining is once again over 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to be listening for air leaks. Then I'm going to come back. I'm going to do the next wheel. All 10 lug nuts. No drips. I'll look at my suspension, my airbags, make sure that my mud flap is in place. The bracket is secure. And then again, look at all my hoses up underneath, making sure there isn't anything rubbing, any cracks. I'm going to look at all my brake chambers, make sure those are all in place. I don't hear any air leaks. Again, my other mud flap is in place. And then I'm going to come down this side and I'm going to go through all the same things. And go check my lug nuts. No oil leaks. Fifth wheel bolts. Nothing's loose. Cradle's good, no cracks. I don't see anything in the tires, no screws, no nails, no cuts in the sidewalls. My quarter fender is in place. Now I'm going to come up here, and right here is the cord for the air tank. I'm going to pull that cord, and that bleeds any moisture out that may be in the air tanks. It's important to do that every day, especially in the winter months. That moisture can freeze in the tanks, and it will prevent the truck from building air. So you want to make sure you're bleeding that every day. Now while I'm here, I'm going to check the rubbers on my glad hands, the seals. Glad hand seals, make sure they're not cracked or torn. Okay, both of those are good. Those don't need to replace. I'm going to check the plug. Make sure that it isn't cracked or it looks corroded or green. Everything looks good there. Now I'm going to check my Airlines, make sure there aren't any cracks here. Always look right up by the handles. That's usually the area they crack in. I don't see any cracks there. I'm good all the way around. Nothing down here at the other end. Everything here looks good. I don't see any bare spots in the electrical cord. There should be no wire showing. If the insulation is cracked and you can see wires underneath, that needs replaced. I'm also going to look at the fuel tank while I'm here, up underneath. I don't see any leaks. There's no fuel leaking from underneath. Everything good. It's good there. Now I'm going to check the annual inspection on the truck. In almost all the trucks, it is located in the driver's side box. This is the annual inspection decal. Make sure that that date is up to date within the last year. This one's 3/25/16, so it's not due till 3/25/17. So this is good. Make sure that door is secure. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to check my batteries. To do that, I need to remove the cover and drop my flashlight. I'm looking for any loose cables. Oh great, I broke my flashlight. There we go. I'm going to look for any green corrosion, any loose cables of any kind. Everything looks to be tight, secure. I don't see any corrosion. If you do see any corrosion and it's starting okay for you, just make sure you bring it to the attention of the shop so that the next time you come through, we can clean those off. They should be done every time the truck is PM'd. Okay, now I'm going to take the hammer and I'm going to check my tires. There should be a lot of resistance there. If the tire wobbles when you hit it, then it's going to be too low on air pressure to go out. I like to hit the sidewalls. You can tell a lot more from the sidewalls than I can hitting the tread. Try to hit the sidewalls. These tires are okay. And the drive tires are okay. You notice I did not hit the steer tires. What you're looking for on the steer tires is the bulge in the sidewall. If it seems like there's excessive bulge in the sidewall, then the steer tires are going to need checked immediately. You should not ever leave the yard with a low tire. If you're out on the road and you're checking them and you notice that, call the shop and let us make the decision on if we need to get somebody to come out and check them or not. That is most of what we're going to check on the outside, other than now I'm going to go back and check my lights. First I'm going to check my four-ways on the side of the truck, on the front. That's working. The one on this side is working. I've got both my four-ways on the back working. I've got the headlights on. And you can turn the headlights on first, save you a couple trips around the shop, around the truck. Both headlights are functioning. All my marker lights up above are functioning. I'm going to turn on the brights. Okay, my brights. Come on. I gotta hit the switch the right direction.